Morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for the invitation to speak this morning. And thanks for the introduction, Tom. My name is Paul Freine. I'm not Michael Gallagher. This is Michael. We're going to do a double-hander on the short presentation from HSE Estates perspective. And I'll get straight into it in the interests of time. I think Tom's introduction was very useful because I think that explanation of what the Children's Hospital is about, even though it was a very summary explanation, but I mean that's at the heart of what our objectives are: is to provide facilities that allow for the provision of appropriate clinical care for patients and those who need it. And the work that we do in HSE Estates covers the full range of programs of care delivery across acute hospitals, childcare, facilities for older people, people with disabilities, mental health. So there's a very wide range of requirements and issues that we have to deal with, and that forms the backdrop and context to all of this discussion. And I think, echoing what Tom said earlier, the use of technology and processes and so on is something that facilitates us in terms of how we achieve those overarching ambitions. So that I think that is the background to what we do, and I'll then talk now briefly about the range of projects we do and the steps that we have taken in terms of bringing into use BIM capacity on our projects. I mean, there was a time until relatively recently where I thought that BIM stood for Bord Iascaigh, but I think I now know that it's something quite different to that. Just to illustrate, we have on our current capital plan, we have in the order of 700 projects live at any given moment. The vast majority of those are very small projects, but some of them are very large and very complex. The most complex of which is, of course, the Children's Hospital, but they cover the entire spectrum. And the other thing that's important in the context of understanding the background to this is the range of delivery models and the structure for the delivery of projects that we work within. So we adopt an approach of traditional procurement for the majority of projects. Design build has been used very successfully on a variety of projects. PPP is being advanced as a mechanism now. We also have to work as funder for projects that are being procured by voluntary agencies. You'll all be aware, I hope the majority of you will be aware of the fact that there are a large number of voluntary agencies, the voluntary hospitals, for example, that have a degree of independence and autonomy in relation to capital projects. And the importance of that in relation to BIM comes into play at the operational phase when the capital development is handed over, and they then have responsibility for bringing it into use. Just to do a quick whistle stop, I mean, this is an aerial view of a very large, complex hospital campus. This is Cork University Hospital. There have been a significant number of developments. The triangular building on the right-hand side of that slide is the new maternity hospital in Cork. The large development on the left is the cardiac renal development. The old hospital building is in the centre. It's currently a site that is to have radiation oncology facilities provided on it. There's a new adult acute mental health facility currently being advanced on that site. So it just gives you a flavour of the sort of range and complexity of the work that we're doing. And of course, the coordination of all of those efforts and the use of technology to facilitate that is central to our way of thinking about it, and we are endeavouring to make best use of capacity like that. This is a quick internal photograph. This is the Mater Adult Hospital that has recently been completed. This slide illustrates the new intensive care unit, and of course, when you look at these internal images, you appreciate fully the complexity of services and equipment and systems that are central to the performance of the facility itself once brought into use. We have a number of primary care projects across the country. These are the ones, these two, Ballinrobe and Dungarvan, are among the number that are being advanced through the PPP mechanism. And I see some of our colleagues from NDFA present. We have community nursing units, which are facilities for older people. These become the homes for those people, but they are also highly serviced in many ways. So there's a significant complexity around those. And also, it's important to note that the mechanism for this was through a program of work. So we tried to ensure that there was a degree of consistency and standardization across a number of these developments. This is a ward block in Ennis with 50 beds for patients in the acute hospital there. And we also deal with very, very particular and specific facilities. This one is the replacement of the Central Mental Hospital currently in Dundrum to a new site in Portrane in North County Dublin. Highly specialised with very, very particular requirements in terms of security and control, but also at the human level, and really important as the home and of the patients who are resident there for some of them for long periods of time. And going back a step, prior to Tom's involvement, this is the previous version of the Children's Hospital originally proposed for the Mater campus. And the reason for illustrating that is one of the projects that we advanced on a BIM basis in the past. It was an early stage introduction into the use of BIM on our projects. And of course, our agenda is probably no different to the agenda of anyone else. On the client side, we want to ensure that we maximise the return in terms of cost, time, quality, and sustainability. This is above and beyond, of course, the absolute fundamental of ensuring facilities fit for purpose for the delivery of care to patients. And on cost, time, and quality, this goes across the design stage, the construction stage, and the operational stage. Looking at operational maintenance and the impact of that, our concern is very significant in this area as the HSE is a very significant property owner. There's an estate that exceeds 3,000 premises, and they can range from small primary care centres in rural towns through to the likes of a large acute hospital campus like the St. James's campus. And when we look at the different stages, a major consideration for us is based on this idea of following the money. And we talk about the use of BIM through the design process. But if you look at this little illustration here as a graphic, the tiny circle on the left-hand side is a notional representation of the cost of design. And on the ratio, a very crude ratio of 1 to 0.1 to 10 or 0.1 to 1, the cost of construction is then in the little blue diagram, a little blue circle. The cost of maintenance and operational cost, the hard FM costs, is in the kind of the beigey colour, and then the cost in use to the client is the very large green colour. And that is, I suppose, dependent on the nature of the activity, but it gives you an idea. If we focus exclusively on the benefits of this in terms of the design stage, we're missing major opportunities. And while we don't have all of the answers, and I suppose to avoid any disappointment, it's important to say that we don't have all of the answers to share with you today, much as we'd like to. The point is that we are aware of a lot of the issues and where the potentials are. So quickly to run through where are we now. We've used BIM process, or we've specified it, or some of our consultants and contractors have volunteered to use it on a number of projects ranging from primary care centres, the maternity hospital, replacement on the Vincent's campus, the Children's Hospital at St. James's, and so on. We've taken the initial steps, particularly focusing on some of the more recent large complex projects. In terms of where are we now, we are seeking as well then to ensure that that those that we recruit and employ to work with us on projects have capacity to make use of BIM. So through our suitability assessment process, we are exploring these different criteria with candidates in terms of their IT capacity, their resources, their experience, and so on, in order to ensure that we have the ability going forward to adopt this process in a meaningful way. And then on the technical side, in terms of the actual procurement, as indicated on this slide here, full level 2, fully collaborative process is what we are trying to achieve. We are taking early steps on this. We don't have our claim to have very particular expertise in relation to it, but these are the objectives that we want. So we know that we want the level 2. We want a collaborative process. We want to ensure that there are appropriate people to manage those processes within the team. We don't want to create new posts or positions or otherwise. We simply want to ensure that the expertise is there and that there is an assigned person responsible for the management and the coordination. We want to try and develop our understanding of the deliverables and the protocols in terms of how BIM will be adopted on the public sector capital projects in health. And I suppose that brings me to the final slide, which is around the next steps and the forward-looking view. I think that one of the key criteria for us, or the key issues, is to understand how we are going to best exploit the potential of BIM in relation to the operational side of things. I mean, I think there seems to be a very significant current focus on the design and the construction stage, but we want to, from our own point of view, we're looking at that, but also at the operational stage. We want to understand how best to focus on the digital information requirements so that they can be exploited, to focus on clear and unambiguous deliverables. I don't know, the fourth bullet point, we have referred to the upskilling of HSE staff, but I don't think that the focus will be exclusively on our own staff. I mean, this is across the sector. It's around the upskilling of all of our collaborators, our colleagues, and those in individual hospitals as well, to ensure that the benefits of a BIM process can be exploited. And I think the second last point here is an important one from our point of view, the transfer stages. We're concerned about the transfer of digital information, of BIM processes at the interfaces between design and construction, and during the design stage, the collaboration between designers, because we tend to employ on a discipline-specific basis. Then there's the transfer between design and construction, and finally there's the transfer between construction and the handover to a client for operational phase. And to make that meaningful, we need to ensure that there's a clear understanding of how that is going to work and what expertise, what capacity there needs to be at either side of that transfer arrangement. So that's a quick whistle stop. I'm going to hand over to Michael Gallagher to talk briefly about a conference or workshop that took place recently in the Health Property Network. We're members of the European Health Property Network. That's an informal alliance of public sector bodies with a similar role and interest in healthcare facilities across a large number of European countries. And we've been members of that for quite some time. In fact, we held a conference here in this very room in 2002. What was interesting is that we've been talking to a lot of other colleagues across the public sector and elsewhere, but we've also been talking to our international colleagues to compare notes about where we are in this particular process. So I'll hand over to Michael to run through his experience and the lessons he learned there.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning. The purpose of the conference was to discuss the use of BIM for healthcare projects. There was presentations on a range of topics and also case studies from projects in the Netherlands, Sweden and Norway. Some of the key points of the topics I've captured in my presentation here, and also some of the discussion points and the conclusions that were drawn at the end. Now, in front of us here is the agenda for the conference. You can see that we have 5 speakers looking at topics such as the overview of BIM possibilities, 5 surprising things you might not know about BIM, and then 3 case studies. So I'm going to focus particularly on 3 of the presentations, which I found quite interesting. Now, the first presentation was 5 surprising things you might not know about BIM. Now, just to let you know, this presentation was by Leo van Berlen from the Netherlands. He clearly stated these points were his own views, and they very much are provocative. So the first point was BIM is not Revit, and Revit is not BIM, just like ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, Tekla, and so on. They're all just software systems, they're not actually BIM. Some say BIM is a process, it's a philosophy, it's collaboration, or it is data. But all agree it is not about software. Leon's second point then was there is no central BIM. In a project, everyone has their own central model. So to the top right-hand corner, you can see a diagram. So in the center is the idea or the notion that there is a central BIM model and everyone feeds into it. Leon's point is that BIM is really about sharing and distributing data in a standardized way using formats such as IFC, and that's more represented in the diagram to the bottom right-hand corner there. So in conclusion, Leon's point is that working in a central model server, everybody using the same software tool, has more downsides than advantages. The third point then was BIM does not enhance collaboration. So you can see quite a funny cartoon sketch on the right-hand side there, which really is about people taking all their information and throwing it over the fence to their colleague. It's really just not a case about just sharing all the information. There's two key questions you really have to ask. First, what do I need to do my job? And then second of all, what do others need from me to do theirs? So the conclusion Leon is bringing here is BIM doesn't enhance collaboration. Everyone actually brings their own craftsmanship and expertise to actually collaborate. BIM, again, is just a software tool. It's really about what the team themselves bring to enhance the collaboration. The fourth point then that Leon made was that you don't need a special BIM manager. This is linked back to point number 3, that there isn't actually a central BIM model. You don't need a BIM manager. Now, it's important to note here, from Leon's perspective, he's been using BIM for a number of years now. It's been used for quite a long time in Holland, Sweden, and Norway. And the point he was made quite clearly as well was in terms of using BIM for novices or in the industry such as our own, where we're just starting out, you really do need a BIM manager to get things going. But in the long term, BIM management is about data information and management, and should be competence of every project manager and actually every design team member and stakeholder involved in the process. This last point then were, there's a number of myths out there, such as you don't need an object library to really work in BIM. BIM doesn't work in an early design stage. Too many deals in BIM give false accuracy. BIM is expensive and the client won't pay for it. Modeling in BIM can be outsourced to India. Some people trust. Open BIM is better, and so on. So there's a number of myths out there, a number of discussion points, and I suppose everyone is forming their own view at the moment as we're finding our way through BIM and the benefits it will bring to our industry. Now, moving on, another presentation was a case study, use of BIM in the Rhinestead Hospital in Ironham. The reason they were using BIM on the project is to optimize the management of their healthcare real estate, reducing failure costs, helping to achieve hospital goals, better cooperation with all the stakeholders involved, better transition from the design and construction phase onto the operational phase. Also on the project as well, they're using the Streamer project, which is an initiative that's been set up in Europe to achieve 50% energy reduction and carbon savings in projects. So they're actually using BIM to try and achieve their Streamer targets. Now, one interesting diagram from the presentation by William was this is their future ambition for using BIM on the hospital projects. They haven't used it at the moment, but this is where they see things moving. At the outset, they'll start using a software tool that's been developed in the Netherlands called Brief Builder for developing design briefs. They'll then move on to Revit to use the design and onto BIM. So that deals with the whole design and build phase of the project. And then moving forward then, they'll use an FM program called Ultimo for the maintenance and operation of facilities. But overall, they're using BIM as the platform to link a number of software packages. Now, moving on to the another case study. This is the third presentation I want to review. It was by Berger Stramso, who is a representative from the southeastern Norway Norwegian Health Authority. Now, they've implemented a BIM strategy back in 2010, which gave a clear signal to the local industry what their intentions were in terms of BIM. You'll see in the diagram to the right there, that's actually their BIM implementation strategy, which is quite interesting. I'm not going to go into detail over that. A very key point then to look at, similar to the UK, from 2016, Open BIM is going to be a requirement on all Norwegian government projects, and everything must be certified to the international open format such as IFC, and also using guidelines from Build Smart. Now, a very interesting point we took away from the presentation was what they've done in the Health Authority in Norway is they've actually secured the property rights for all BIM work. So the design rights, the copyright, the database rights, that's all secured by the client. And so far it's going quite well because when they put in place their strategy back in 2010, the industry was fully aware that they were handing over the property rights to the authority. Now, after the 5 presentations, there was an interactive BM discussion amongst all the attendees at the conference. There were 3 questions asked. The first one was, how can BIM transform your way of working now and in the future? The second question was how to use BIM in the operational phase of your building. And the final question was how to integrate knowledge about design outcomes using evidence-based designs into BIM. Now, just to give you a flavour now of the conclusions that were drawn. One of the first points was that BIM will support healthcare design process, but will not revolutionise healthcare design itself. BIM simulation in 3D is a useful tool to help clinical stakeholders from non-technical backgrounds to visualise design concepts. BIM simulation in 3D design will give more confidence, sign off the design process, and enable greater possibilities for off-site construction and also improve quality. From an M&E design perspective, the use of BIM will assist the coordination of intensive and complicated areas such as operating theatres and ICUs. BIM can be used as a simulation tool to test design solutions. And then final slide of conclusions. Just like a car, a healthcare building needs to be serviced and maintained on a regular basis. Lifecycle cost is key to the success of a building, and BIM can assist in improving the lifecycle design of buildings. And then just some of the particular benefits that were proposed from the attendees of the conference were BIM is a very good tool for clash detection. It can be used to manage patient flows through a building at the design stage. It's also a decision support tool, stroke scenario tool, to look at energy usage in the building, retrofitting, and simulation for instances such as fire evacuation. So that's pretty much the conclusions from the conference. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Paul and Michael. What's interesting from Paul's presentation there really is the huge investment that's planned in healthcare over the next number of years. And even though obviously from a state point of view there have been challenges and continue to be challenges, it's great to see that there is the commitment to do that. And I suppose when you look at the investment in roads over the last number of years and the impact, the positive impact it has for our lives, you can see that the same is required, and that's been recognised at the moment in terms of an investment in healthcare. So that was very useful, Paul. And also, I think certainly from dealing with Paul, I'd acknowledge that, and as you know, in this, it takes champions from the client side to ensure that BIM becomes a requirement. It's either driven, I suppose, by the design and contractor side, or by the client. But ultimately, if the client is driving for BIM, well then you're assured that you start on the right footing. And in fairness, I know that Paul very much supports it, and that's clear from his presentation. And at a time when there's so much investment planned, that's good to see. I've just a bit worried about the slide that shows the design as being so insignificant and then the builder being a little bit more significant. But I thought now with my builder's hat on that it'd be a good one to argue about. You'd say, well, sure, God, you know, it's only another 1 million, but you see the impact it's going to have in the future. So hopefully we won't hear those arguments. You might see that slide turn up again, Paul, when we're having those discussions about extra costs and all that. And from Michael's, I think it's great, and I'd say in terms of what Susanna and CITA are doing, is to, rather than reinventing the wheel, is to go and look at what's been done best internationally and try and build on that. And in terms of that, and we're delighted this morning to have